A few weeks ago, I held a poll to see which Clash of Heroes deck that I should profile next. Meow. Magnolia has always kind of been my white whale of Overdress. No, not that kind. It's just always been the deck that I want to play, but then something else comes out at the exact same time. Kind of like Great Nature's always notoriously been for me, which isn't ironic at all in the fact that this is a deck that specializes in multi-attacking, buffing its units, and occasionally blowing said units up in the name of science. Lord Fluffy Dragon herself has always just kind of done this by pointing at a unit after it attacks, paying that counterblast, and then giving that back row unit plus 5,000 with a back row attack. Or, you know, multiple if you're on Persona Ride or a grade 4 or whatever. Now that she has a cool mask to put on though, that counterblast no longer matters. Now she's all about creating a healthy forest filled with dragon trees. This is where I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the deck, and when I went through 3 weeks of testing multiple different iterations of this build just to kind of figure out something that was good enough to show off. You need dragon trees to function here. Now I know that mass decks typically use them to buff their field or whatever, and how the other new cat, Garuzio, basically revolves around using the mask order itself. But the cat dog dragon here, it needs, and I cannot stress this enough, needs dragon tree markers to function. Without them, Magnolia is essentially just an extremely vanilla card, and you may as well just sit on the normal wolf dragon to generate a 4th attack with vanilla rear guards. Because of this, I am maxing out the grade 2 Mask Searcher as one is taking one of the grade 1 Bistalvis. You need to devote as many resources as possible to keeping this evil force nice and healthy. So I'd even contemplate on using a second Bis if there's more flex room just for the opportunity to plant those trees. If I had a second one. Which is a perfect time to remind you guys that if you like what we do here and want to help support this channel so I can afford to make more decks and buy more proper upgrades like this, make sure to check out my page on TCG Player or grab some raised energy using code Skyridge to save online. Anyways, both our rushes do have to do with orders, be it this kid searching on a mask or this guy letting you cycle orders back to your hands. So I am actually going to be maxing out on the mask for once. This now effectively grabs 9 cards out of deck, as well as letting Megumi's pet dragon awaken its persona. Because of this, we're actually running the classic Zorga ride line, just as the anime intended. Now, since we only run 4 orders here, I'd essentially consider this just kind of a win more consistency combo. But if you open a mask, it's plus city with the ability to draw and recycle cards. But even if you don't, you still have plenty of ways to use that ride line for early game solo effects, like the Grade 2 Rush to fetch your mask, or Cyril to check your top 5 for Magnolia card. Your dear boy also has a neat secondary effect too. When you Persona Ride, he pretends like he's a Graham Grace and gives your back row the plus 10k as well. On top of Mag Mask already giving things on trees plus 10,000 power, and the trees themselves also giving a 5k buff, you're looking at potentially give all those Forest Guardians up to 25,000 attack for free during your turn. Oh, and I guess I should go over the Black Doggo's other effect. You can give those attackers the ability to pop off an opponent's rear guard when they attack from dragon trees when you bind up a Magnolia. So that's situationally good. The other reason I run an extra Magnolia, though, is for a backup Persona Ride when you can't place those trees fast enough, or, you know, to give Cyril another target search. Of course, this is a Magnolia deck, so let's go over a couple of Magnolia cards. Mainly this weird llama that gets stronger and stronger the bigger your board is, and then yeets itself out of the way to give you resources back, and everyone's favorite, Professor Glow Nipples. When Big Bear Bound attacks, he's able to pass his power to another rear guard for a counterblast. So naturally, this deck is going to be running that red over trigger to give him the resand. And theoretically, gives you 4 use of that same power, since he's going to be passing that power to 2 units as well. Good job on that one, Bushy Road. Jumping back to the ride line for a sec, there are some other orders that are worth considering. Elementaria is basically a perfect guard with a nice bonus versus triple drive decks. Ye Wandering Souls gives you a drive check by discarding an order. Tearful Malice gives you back resources if you can afford to pop board. And Stokeia has a whole slew of orders that can refill your board in various ways. Not to mention this new kid that powers up all your trigger units for early game rush pressure. That said, Magnolia does care a lot more about units and orders, and deck space is already kind of tight, so if you want to do orders to Okea, I'd stick to Zorga or the new promo that looks kind of like Asha. Like I said, we're primarily using the Zorga duo just to get more consistency with the Masque engine, because turn 1 Graceful Charity going second while retrieving the same order next turn is pretty sweet. And because the Sylvan, Horde, and Beast ride line makes me kinda sad. And while Double Maple is the biggest brain play and can be used as a nice alternative for making board with your soul, it's just a bit slow for this kind of deck. Maybe use like Spooky Ghost Man into classic Grade 2 Maple Syrup, or the exact opposite, something like that. Anyways, this is one more card to go over here. Well, 2. Well, 2 plus the triggers and perfect guards, but there's that. 7 crits and 4 draws feels pretty good here. I can see this maybe swapping around a crit for a draw or something like that, but Stokea suffers from having the cutest crits in the game, and I want to show off the funny doggo. I opted for pure perfect guards in this deck over Sanctitude because Magnolia likes to field units, but if you care about the grade 4 meta or want to buff your ride line a little bit by losing a PG turn 1, go for it. But yeah, you may remember this guy from the announcement video I did a few months ago, but Magnolia came out with a BFF in the form of a Force Dragon that likes to grow things forcefully. Force Glow Dragon has the ability to call units from the drop zone equal to the number of trees that you have planted, which is another reason why the Black Hat 1 bajillion% needs to have trees out at all points of time. It could then give your Magnolia Vanguard plus 5k buff when it declares attack, which could lead to some funky little attack patterns. You are going to need to have 2 of them out in order to get over a defensive trigger, but power-ups are always nice in a deck where you're not going to typically be able to boost. Oh yeah, last card is the Station's Carbuncle. On the Brethrens, you can send 2 cards from your ride line back to the ride deck face up and make it a 20k shield, which is pretty solid on its own because, you know, defensive ability in a format where everything's kind of power hungry. Plant Nation's secondary skill though is a Soul Charge 2 and gives something a plus 5, which is also pretty good since the deck does filter through its resources at a pretty decent clip, and powering up is always welcome. I'll even say that from my experiments that fielding at turn 2 in order to make a high pressure early game is pretty useful, so keep that in mind for a rush strat since your typical turn 2 player is going to be playing the Eel Dragon to grab a mask and plant a tree, which makes for a nice little 23k column after your Vanguard attacks. So that is Magnolia Masque. Pretty aggressive deck as long as you have the pieces, but like I said, that is the main beef that I got here. You are a very piece-reliant deck in terms of needing dragon trees to function, even though a good majority of the deck can search something out or generate a board out of nowhere. I mean, like, this thing has a surprisingly good control matchup. I was literally playing against a couple Gandivas in my area, and a well-timed Force Glow Dragon, just, you come back from nowhere. And cards like that effectively mean that guarding is no issue because you're just going to be calling cards back out drops in later. But what do you guys think? Is Fluffy a decent deck? Is Megami still best girl now that the anime ended and they finally did something with her at the very end of the anime after, like, how long has Overdress been? Or are you guys all still on the correct side of Stokea and standing Leonore with me? Yeah, I can't wait for this. Make sure you guys are subscribed to see what I do with the Big Band Girl. I already have my initial thoughts video posted there. Until next time, I'm about to go walk my doggo to go find a forest filled with dragon trees. So, always, embrace the infinite.